Okay. Okay, we will call the meeting of the Lancaster Criminal Justice Commission to order at 10:06 a.m. Roll call.
Commissioners Brown,
Present.
Harris,
Present.
Purr,
Present.
McCracken, present, Paris, absent, Vice Chair Little,
Present.
Chairman Mercy.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay. Would someone like to lead our invocation? Anyone comfortable? Good. Okay. Commissioner McCracken. Sorry, I forgot to ask.
Good morning, everyone. Dear Heavenly Father, today is another beautiful day as you have allowed us to come to this meeting. We come to you asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we come together for the good of our community. Bless those in this room who have taken time out of their day to come together to protect the world which you gave us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Dr. Brown, would you like to lead our pledge?
Hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have no presentation, so we'll move to the consent calendar, which consists CC1, approval of the minutes. Is there any objection to approving the minutes as presented?
No objection.
Hearing none, the consent calendar is approved. Commission staff presentations, updates and reports. LA County Sheriff's.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Deputy Lawrence Green. I am your Community Relations Deputy for Lancaster Sheriff's Station. Today we'll be presenting the comp stats for the City of Lancaster. February 2023, we always go back 2 months to get the most accurate stats as possible. Due to the detailed stats, I like the month-to-month stats just so you can see a quick adjustment. But if you want more detail, there is more detail on this report. So when I go over this report, I'll be going over the month-to-month difference in progression or digression. Homicides over a period of a year have gone up. For the month from March to February, we have a decrease of 23% from March 2022 to February 2023. If you look at the over a period of a year, you'll have different increases and decreases. This is what I mean by the detail in this report. So I'll only be going over the difference from March 2022 to February of 2023. If you need any further details, you can look below. Rapes over a period of a year are down, averaging around 7. Usually they're not any serial rapists going around. They're domestic related or someone knows the other party as far as that's concerned. From March 2022 to February 2023, we have a decrease of 13.4%. Robberies over a period of a year are also down, averaging 27 in the month of February. From March 2022 to February of 2023 versus March 2021 to February 2022, we have a 20% increase. Aggravated assaults over a period of a year have gone down, averaging 85 in the month of February. March to February, 19.13% increase. Domestic violence-related aggravated assaults over a period of a year have gone down, averaging 10. March 2022 to February of 23 versus last year, 1.75% increase. Burglaries over a period of a year have gone down in the month of February, averaging 66. A burglary comparison shows March 2022, February 2023 versus March of 2021 and 2022 have a 35% increase. Larceny and thefts are down in the month of February, averaging 108. 7.62% increase from 2022 to 2023 versus 2021 to 2022. Grand theft vehicles over a period of a year have gone down, averaging 92. 0.83% increase. arsons over a period of a year, averaging 3. The arson comparison shows a 14.63% decrease. Part 1 crimes over a period of a year, that's everything that we just discussed, averaging 387, have actually gone down. From March 2022 to February 2023 and 2021 versus March 2021, February 2022, 0.61% decrease. These are your hot spots for the month of February. This is going to be around Jay and Valley Central Way, as you can see on the left, a little bit of a dark hot spot. And then in the business district, still around that area. Looks like the one from last month moved. We had one over at the business center off of K and 10th, but that hot spot is no longer there. So we see a little bit of a change as far as where it's been relocated. Do we have any questions for the comp stats as far as for the city comp stats?
Yeah, I just wanted to understand, you were going through them. I mean, I was able to read it, but I couldn't track everything. Except for arson and Part 1 crime, everything else is up.
It was actually a decrease over a period of a year, but yes, it's going to start as the temperature rises, right? Crime tends to increase. Part 1 crimes in general, larceny, thefts, people are outside. What we've been seeing in February, because it's so cold, arsons is going to be a thing because of the homeless creating fires to stay warm outside of the business districts where they tend to be sleeping and then catching fire. Now, I don't know if it's done on purpose, but arson is only classified as arson if there's intent behind it. We still get calls for service regarding fires. So our stats, the way they relate is, hey, we're going to respond to what is called a 904B, a brush fire or a trash fire, but it could be related to arson. Unless that report is generated under an arson profile, you're going to get a lot of fire calls around February because it's one of the coldest times of the year.
Deputy, on the mapping that you showed on the hot spots, it seems very similar each month, correct?
Yes. So the business districts are always going to be your major hot spots.
So what are we doing? I mean, what can we do, or what are we doing for the business districts, or what are they doing to help police that area? And what is the major contribution to those problems over in that area?
Well, what Lancaster Sheriff Station's been doing is creating events or a kind of like a neighborhood watch or a business watch, if you will, on how to have businesses maintain, peace in their area. I've personally been going to these business watches and things of that nature to teach them how to maintain their video surveillance, how to talk with their loss prevention teams. Every business is different as far as liability and what they're willing to do to prevent theft, to prevent illegal activity in front of their business. But all we can do as Lancaster Sheriff Station is teach them what to expect when we arrive, how to pull their video footage in surveillance, how to interact with someone who seems to be a problem or who is a habitual shoplifter, things of this nature. These are the things we've been teaching the businesses on how to conduct proactive policing.
Do a lot of these establishments have private security?
They do, and each security system, which I've determined, is different on what they allow to happen during an incident. Some allow hands-on, some do not.
Right.
So that determines whether or not we're going to get what is called an Estes 211. If a person is in the process of stealing and actually gets into a physical altercation with security or an employee, it becomes a robbery and not just a shoplifting.
And I would imagine major establishments, major chains would prohibit, I've heard, being out in the area, would prohibit private security to engage.
To engage and go hands-on, thus allowing the suspect to pull X amount of dollars worth of merchandise, which in their head turns it to, I'm not going to get caught, so let me do this over and over and over again. But when the sheriffs arrive, we will enforce the law and we will make that arrest. But they have it in their head for some reason that the law enforcement will not be called.
With those arrests that are being made, and let's say they're having, more than once, twice, whatever it may be, and I'm assuming they get cited, you bring them in, they get released,
Yes.
and then after that, they're released.
Yes, that is correct. So we will make the arrest. We will take them to jail. We will cite them. This process takes between 4 and 8 hours. Within that 4 and 8 hours, they are required to be released, absolutely.
And for them to be prosecuted, it's like a speck on the wall. Mr. Sherwood has a million things going on in his department, and then like, come on, really? I can only imagine it goes by the wayside, correct?
I don't know what happens after our arrest. I can't tell you that, but I do know that we do make the arrest.
Yeah, no, I know that.
Yeah.
I do know.
Yeah.
Trust me, I know what you guys are going through. You guys do an incredible job. There's no doubt about that, you know.
Sir, if I could add to that, actually, in Mr. Sherwood's defense, his office has been extremely helpful in working with us on repeat offenders.
Yeah.
They have policies they got to follow, but on the repeat offenders, they've been very helpful.
Yeah. No, I listening to this, it just seems this revolving door, and I commend Mr. Sherwood. Talking to him and the sheriff's department, what you guys do, it's incredible. And we can't thank you guys enough, but I just was kind of curious on those aspects.
Yeah, having that repeat offenders clause is going to be fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to show some type of relief, hopefully, because, you know, we can't let this go on. So, absolutely.
I have a question on the hotspots with the businesses. What kind of crimes are you seeing it? Are you seeing it inside the business itself, or are you seeing a lot of it is mostly outside in parking lots?
It's actually inside. So, for example, you have Burlington Coat Factory, right? So they would go in and just load up their cart and walk out. But because of, you know, security, policy, and procedure and liability issues, no one wants to go hands-on and detain until we arrive because of liability issues. That's what I've seen personally patrolling. It's always happened inside, and it's now to the point where they don't care if security's watching. They will literally pull stuff off the shelves and walk out even while being watched. So it's come to that, unfortunately. Outside activity, that tends to be more like road rage or parking issues, things of that nature where you have conflict driving in and out of parking lots. That's where that usually takes place, or aggressive solicitation, things of that nature.
What's the current status on the catalytic converter issues?
As far as the catalytic converter issues, we are trying to get another grant to, to set up another task force. It was very effective last year. The team did amazing, and we actually had some results. The community loved it. The community loved that we were doing these etch and catch events. So I'm praying that we can get another grant to get another thing rolling, because it's not going to go away. You know, unless the manufacturers find some way to, provide maybe something to cover the bottom of your car that would be free to the community, then you would literally slow down that a lot. But I don't know if that's in the works.
On the subject of community relations, we were talking earlier about videos, and it occurs to me that in a California where you have a relatively anti-police political environment, and a DA that's relatively anti-police, and certainly a media hand-in-hand anti-police. I had an experience with the Sheriff's Department many years ago where they took me through a training module where an arrest situation is on the video, and I'm asked to react in certain ways to whether it's dangerous, whether I should put my hand on my gun, whether I should pull my gun. And it was an extremely useful and educational process. I would expect, this was many years ago, so I would expect that the video technology for that is much, much better. And I'm wondering if this might be the kind of thing that high school kids could be introduced to give them a sense of what's actually going on in the field. Any thoughts on that?
I'm so glad you actually brought that up. Our mental evaluation team actually has a virtual reality scenario where it has multiple cameras that scan you, and it shows your body behavior, and you actually talk to a person who was mentally ill. And based off of your responses and you using your verbal judo will determine how that virtual subject is going to react. And it's like a call for service. You go, a mentally ill person's walking down the street. He may or may not have a weapon on him, and you have to find a way to talk to this person to get him to comply or her to comply, and it's all virtual. So I've been working with Sergeant Klump to find out if he will be going into the schools to see if he can set up this whole unit. It's on a trailer. It's actually mobile. It's pretty cool. And technology is absolutely fantastic. There's a person manning the questions and things of that nature and the responses, so they can show the youth on what we deal with, whether it's bipolar, schizophrenia, things of that nature. We would like to bring it to the school so they can see how behaviors change and how they can change instantly based off of how you approach the situation.
I think it's a terrific idea, and I think these, high school kids are really ripe for this. They're excited about it, they're interested in it, and they're at the peak of their indoctrination. So it might be useful to have some counterweighting force at their disposal. Would that also include, or could it include, shooter situations? Because I think when the media gets a hold of these shooter situations, they paint a very unfavorable picture that a lot of people don't really grasp what's happening at the moment.
Well, the program you're identified as a deputy in this program. So obviously you're going to have a weapon on you. The question is did you do enough verbal communication to prevent the attack? Or was the attack inevitable? That's where it comes down to, how to communicate as best as possible to reduce the risk of force, right? And then you get your mind ticking at this point. Did I do enough to prevent the force? And if there was force that was unpreventable, what force would I have used? This is what we would ask the youth. Would you have went to a less lethal option? Would you have went to a lethal option? It's just the mindset. Everybody's mindset is different, and you're actually going to get to learn this. The Poppy Festival is coming up, and the fairgrounds, all of that. Usually the trailer is there, so you probably get to experience that if the Met team does roll out. They'll probably have their trailer, so you can actually experience that at the Poppy Festival or at the AV Fair. So it's a pretty cool experience. Technology brings kids, youth, so it's an awesome experience.
Yeah, and old people. It sounds like something I should retry. I'd
Yeah.
love to come and see that. I'll make a point of that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely fantastic.
Thanks.
Any additional questions?
Well, just kind of a comment on those lines. Since the body cams have become more ubiquitous, I'm starting to see just on social media people releasing public body cam footage of just the type of situations and how law enforcement is treated, and the incredible patience shown by so many, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, the community actually engages with us a lot. It's the few, that don't like us that actually have a lot of, influence, unfortunately. But overall, our community, does really well with us. And I love my community, and we engage regularly, the whole station. So it's nice to hear some positivity out of all the negative that happens.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Leaps.
Chairman and Commissioners, good morning. This presentation will cover both the month of January and February because of we had to get into some deep issues last time, so. Okay. There we go. January, just overviewing operations, a little over 66 hours in the air, representing accomplished 102 dispatches during that time. Tactical over 23 hours, strategic 42 hours, covering 803 square miles in the Antelope Valley. The airframe We accomplished a normal 50-hour inspection and resealed the windscreen. Did a battery backup replacement on the storage area network, which is over in the old AV station. That's the huge repository of all video data that's captured. Using the terminology that LASD uses, across the bottom, you'll see the 5 categories, percentage of each that represented the actual dispatches. On the right-hand side, the actual specific actions with respect to arrests, traffic stops, burglary and robbery, fights and assaults, persons with a gun or a weapon, and other ones. During January, some of the highlights, we supported the 2023 homeless census, the 24th and 26th of January, and that ranged in the north all the way to Avenue L, of course, Kern County. In the south, Valley Emerald and Wrightwood. East, 150th Street East to 185th Street West. We identified 57 concentration sites of homeless. Those sites were mapped to the areas for each one of the field units in Los Angeles County and provided to them. We had a quarterly meeting with the Air Ops over at Plant 42, given the 2 large pieces of Class D airspace that cover Lancaster. We meet with them regularly. And here's one example of a stolen vehicle and arrest. The picture there on the right is the actual flight path that we accomplished during the homeless census. February, airborne 76 hours, a little over 76, 131 dispatches, tactical 34.8, strategic about 65, covered an average of 630 square miles. We lost 4 days of support due to climatological factors. Airframe had both a 50 and 100-hour inspection. Instrument panel brackets were replaced, left handbrake reline. The bail agreement we have with the city of Lancaster is that we keep that Cessna 172 in Class A condition, without exception. In February also, the LASD and the Department of Public Safety have got the flock cameras up. We were able to integrate part of their display in the display that we keep in the dispatch area to help all of us. Across the bottom, the 5 categories, arrests over on the right-hand side, supported 17 arrests, 25 traffic stops, 18 burglary, 37 fights and assaults, 11 people with weapons, and 41 other requests by deputies. February operations ranged from Rosamond to Avenue Q6 and 110th East to 205th Street West. Their first picture there is a head-on collision on 90th Street West. The one farther to the right is one of the old pot farms out in the middle of the desert caught on fire, and we were sent there. One of the events in February on Sierra Highway, there was a collision where a vehicle was rear-ended by a large, like a bobtail truck, moving. Robbery was conducted. Then the person in the car was shot. And we were asked to see if we could help. We came. One of the witnesses to actually what happened gave a good description of the vehicle. One of LASD officers saw that out on the north side of town heading down the 14 freeway. And they said, can you go help? Johnny Quick, we got him, found that vehicle, traced it to where it was going in in Rosamond. where it was going to unload what it was moving. We stayed there until the deputies could get the necessary team up in order to go see about these people. And I've got a video that it's a vignette that we put together that lasts about 10 minutes that will show you what actually happened.
Thank you.
There's the actual occurrence. And sure enough, there it was.
Archie,
Yes.
with this film that we're seeing right now, if you had a different camera system, would your cameras be completely different than what we're seeing now?
Oh, my Lord, yes.
Okay.
Gentlemen, remember, this is a 12-year-old camera.
Yeah, I just wanted to see what that would look like.
It would be crystal clear.
Right, Deputy Green?
Is that the Araki is showing there is a the 52,000 or 23,000?
Well, no, what we were at about 5,000 AGL above ground. The people in the trucks had no idea we were in there, no idea whatsoever. In fact, as they turned, if you'll notice, there is a patrol car following them. They didn't even notice that either.
Was patrol called off because you guys were following him from the air, or?
Well, two things. Number one, you've got to have, has got to be enough law enforcement there to make an effective stop and detainment. And that needed to be grouped together. Because remember, this is Kern County. There are a lot of reciprocal agreements between LA and Kern County, as there are between Lancaster and Palmdale. There's a moving truck backed up to a house.
And at this point, they're still unaware that you guys are surveilling?
They don't know that we're even there. That's true. There was some movement in the pickup, and so focused in on that for a while.
At this time, Kern County's involved?
Uh, No. Just a moment.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Just so you know, the Roseman substation for Kern is about as far as like Lake Los Angeles substation. So their response times to get more units over there for backup is long. That's why they usually call us.
Yeah. While the suspects were being taken into custody, we also maintained surveillance behind the residence to be sure that someone wasn't trying to sneak out of the back. This is one of the things that LEAPS was designed and built to do. we take a great deal of pride in supporting the people that protect this community. And we will go to whatever extent to be sure that we can give them the kind of support that they need, because those are the folks that are in harm's way. It's real simple.
Yeah, that's wonderful, wonderful teamwork there. And I think I appreciate Green for announcing why it was such a long time to get there because of the substation being so far away.
Yes.
But at least you guys were there to be able to support the deputies and give them the eyes that they didn't have at that point. But
And,
we need
and
to
a
work
lot
on
of
that camera,
time-
though.
In that same vein, he did mention the people out to the far east here in the Antelope Valley. We are able to get out there quick,
Right.
so that, single car? Kid has got some cover.
What was in the truck?
Furniture, they were moving.
They were just moving, huh?
They decided, evidently they decided they needed to pull one more job before they moved to Rosewood.
It's an unusual getaway vehicle.
Yes, it is. Well, it's, you've got to admit, it was pretty good camouflage. But it was a very rewarding experience for us.
How many
to be-
arrests were made at that site?
Say again?
How many arrests were made at that site?
5?
Wow.
I believe it was 5, yes. Okay, can answer any other questions?
Yeah, I've been here a long time and watched this LEAPS program through the years, and it's been a fabulous program and a very interesting addition. As you know, there's new technology nipping at your heels, and probably not there yet, but nonetheless, when you get to the point of making cost allocations between new cameras and trying to assess when your new technology might be up to par, and deciding where to allocate funds, that can be tricky, and particularly now because we're in kind of a break point between these two technologies. I'd be very interested in, if next time, if you have the wherewithal to get a better cost sense of what this costs, what the camera will cost, and maybe somebody from public health or public safety department might be able to give us a little bit of assessment, because I know you guys are looking at unmanned surveillance, and get a sense of where the future is and what the costs are going to be. That would be very helpful.
We keep Rod and Tracy up to speed on where things stand. We were able to introduce some technology into the system during the initial part of COVID with the help of the Department of Public Safety. We had replaced the engine in the aircraft and had the 2 spare engines, so we sold those. And that's why we've got new technology in the RF spectrum now that it is leading edge, believe me, it is leading edge. What we captured in real time there could have been displayed on the New York PD's desk in New York City. No problem.
And I'd be interested, just to finish, for the Sheriff's Department input and the Highway Patrol, how's this help you guys? What would you like to see? Because it's coming, this change in technology.
Well, my philosophy is I have a customer. That customer is the City of Lancaster Department of Public Safety to support Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. That's what we will do, and as first class a product as we can deliver.
Thank you.
Archie, can you bring to us the difference between the 2 camera systems, the ones you're working with now, and the new technology that's out there? Can you show us the difference?
Sure I can, yes.
Could you bring that to the,
Yes, I can. Commissioner, the basic difference is the time clock. The miniaturization of video capture capability. The inclusion of Sterling engines in the IR mode, being extremely small now. Yes, we have got some samples from the exact camera that we would use to replace, and next month or something, we can show you some very short clips.
that'd be awesome.
This took a little while, but it's important to see, I think, a full operation. The guys at the station are unbelievable.
Yeah, great work. Great work, yeah.
And we're there to support them. That's what we're here for. Anything else?
Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up, LA County Probation Department.
Good morning, everyone. I don't have a fancy video to show you, unfortunately, but we'll do our best to give you that message. First, I wanted to thank you all for taking a peek at our mobile resource unit that we brought out last month. Mr. Crisanti's here. He's our coordinator of that. Yeah, and we're doing our best to bring it out in the community for personal reasons for the department and for the community reasons, obviously. We're making arrangements to participate in the National Night Out with Palmdale and Lancaster. So we'll have people come and the community can kind of see it, see what it is, and kind of inform them about what we're doing and trying to get a little bit more involved with the community and the services that we offer. We will be on the 25th. We'll be at Avenue L and 20th West in the old Ralph's Shopping Center. We'll have people reporting there. So if you guys are available to stop by and see how it actually works, you'll be able to see it live in action there. And we're usually there between, about 9:30 and 9 to 1, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
What day?
The 25th of April. You know, we're struggling right now in our office. We have we talked about political things, Mr. Brown, and law enforcement and the things. We're losing deputies right now. They're being reassigned to our juvenile halls because of staff shortages. We no longer have the typical 15, 16-year-old person residing at our juvenile halls while they wait their cases to be heard, or if they're long-term. We have more violent. We have 25-year-olds. We have people, we have young men mostly that have committed murder, attempted murder. We just had a recent high-profile case where a rapper was killed and the judge sentenced him to 4 years juvenile hall, and he's 20 years old. So now we have a lot of probation officers that worked in juvenile for years and dealt with 15 and 16-year-olds on standard, and now they're having to supervise young men that are 25, 26 even, that should have been in prison. But according to our lawmakers and some of the people that make decisions, they feel like their brains haven't developed enough, and they shouldn't be with grown men, even though they are considered grown men by age. So we're struggling with that. Last night, or the night before, one of the supervisors on duty was stabbed in the neck by a shank. Got about a 4-inch laceration. He was stabbed actually 3 times. This is a common effect. We are searching all the time, but now we're down to, our office is down to 50% of what we were a few years ago in deputies. So obviously our caseloads are now increasing. More, as recently as last month, we lost 2 more. Most of it's going by seniority, but some of these deputies are really valuable to our office and to this community, and they're being taken from us to go supervise men that are in juvenile hall, and it's becoming very frustrating. But we're doing our best to keep up. So obviously the caseload numbers are up. Violations have been pretty much streamlined the same. But we haven't had any growth in that but when you get your caseloads to double in the last year, you're gonna miss stuff. It's just inevitable, unfortunately. We try not to. So people are working harder, longer hours and things like that. So it's been a real difficult time. The Board of Supervisors are trying to close the juvenile hall, so that's why we're having to staff them more, because we have a lack of staff. A lot of people just don't want to go to work because of the danger. They all signed up for it. They all understand their deputies. They all understand it, but they didn't sign up to be correctional officers. And that's pretty much what we're supervising is kids, young men that should be in prison or at least county jail, and they're being supervised by people that were never trained to do that. We were trained to de-escalate and work with young men and young women and help get them to return to the community. And when you work with people that have committed some heinous crimes and then aren't going to return to the community for some time, it's a little bit more difficult task than they signed up for, unfortunately. So that's where we're at right now. So morale is a little struggling, but we're trying to do the best we can. We'll be having a resource fair in June, I believe, at the courthouse here at Avenue M. The resource fair is guided to help people in need that have had an unfortunate record of maybe would not qualify for a lot of jobs in the standard, as we start to expand our job force by asking, did you commit a felony and you don't have that box to check anymore? You're getting you're not having to do it like we once knew. So there's opportunities out there. There's a lot of organizations that are trying to help folks get back on track, stay on the right path. And some people are taking advantage of it. We have one gentleman that just read through our Invest program that we have out here, and he was recognized by the Board of Supervisors in the County of LA because he took the job seriously, he took the program seriously, and I think he's making like $38 an hour now, and he's doing really well, and he's providing for his family. So he was working actually 2 jobs. He was one of our success stories. He was working at McDonald's in Rosemont to help provide for his family, and then going to the apprentice program. And so obviously now he doesn't have to work at McDonald's anymore to support his family. He's got a really good union job, and he took the seriousness of the program, and he ran with it, and he did a great job. So we do have success stories that happen, more than we probably realize. So the community fair, I think I want to say that it's the first week of June, and then I'll have flyers hopefully by next month, and I'll bring them to you and share them with you, and hopefully you can stop by and see it. We have a lot of people from the department that'll show up, and some community leaders and stuff like that, and we try to open it up for people can just recognize that we're trying to do a positive approach and not just hook them and book them, lock them up, and things of that nature, violations and things of that nature. We're trying to support them as best we can, those that are willing to accept that and the resources. You spoke about the high school kids, and my light bulb went on. Every year, Highland High School in Palmdale, and hopefully the Lancaster area high school can do the same if they're not already. They have a law enforcement resource fair for their students. So, I'll see the DA's office there. I'll see the, CHP will be there, parole will be there. So there's probably the fire departments there, and sheriffs and everyone there. And we expose them to what we do in different various law enforcement. So hopefully we can encourage some of the Lancaster, if they're not doing it already. We normally get invited to that, and we do attend, and it's kind of a cool thing. And so some of the things you were discussing earlier with the sheriff, it's really a nice thing for those kids, and they come through, and you're talking about 2,000 or 3,000 students at a high school. They're going to be exposed to the positive side of what we do and the effects that we have in the community and things of that nature. So it's good. So hopefully we can get some Lancaster schools to do the same thing. But other than that, everything else seems to be, violations are kind of steady. We haven't seen a large increase. It's just kind of holding on, but the warmer weather's coming out, as the Sheriff's Department shares with you. The warmer it gets, the more people hang out. The time has changed, the hours have changed, so we have more sunlight, more people hanging out. Probably alcohol sales go up and things of that nature, so we deal with those. So we just introduced a new testing for our narcotic testing unit. What we do is we went from the urine test, which is probably the most accurate. After the pandemic, went to like a lollipop sucking test, and now we're using saliva. So they get like a little tube that has like an opening, like a little hat opening, like a funnel, I guess, and they'll spit in it, and then it'll do that, and then we'll send it out. And so they're getting a little bit more accurate than actually swabbing. So, but they're still staying away from the urine samples as much because of the pandemic, I think. So they're trying to be creative with it. So that's where we're at.
So a couple thoughts, if you would.
Absolutely, sir.
I read about this 20-year-old that went through his 4 years of incarceration at juvenile hall. Be a good mix for the kids. They'll get some education from this guy about how to be a better criminal. But and it's another, it seems to me, and maybe I have a jaundiced view about this, but another feather in the cap for District Attorney Gascon and the pro-crime political environment that we find ourselves in. And of course, this is unnoticed downstream consequences from this kind of behavior is the erosion of morale, the difficulty hiring new officers, and the depletion of your resources because of this kind of political environment. Maybe I'm watching too much TV, but tracking devices. My cat has a chip.
Right.
And I would think that the technology is there to keep pretty good track of people and not only just where they are at the moment, but where they've been. That, and in thinking, if somebody could check and see if you happened to be at the liquor store 3 weeks ago when there was a robbery, might be some deterrent effect. So what's the status of the technology of tracking devices and parolees?
So I'll give you the example of what we went through. About 2 years ago, we had one global positioning system employee. It's a contracted company. I think it's called Corrective Solutions in our office, one. And they service pretty much the whole Antelope Valley. They had maybe 40, 50 cases. The county introduced a supervised release program, SRP. We have 6 now. So now we went from 50 to 3 to 350, and they're swamped. So every day we get people, and here's the hard part. If they're on the SRP program, on the supervised release program, while they're going through their case, we have no jurisdiction over them. I can't hook somebody up because they come in and they start swearing and cussing and telling the whole world that they're innocent. You had your opportunity in court, so they come in with an attitude sometimes. It's rare. We actually do a really good job, but we have to face that. So they are being monitored and being tracked, most of them, and there's so much more out there now. But again, we went from 50 to 300-400 because they're releasing them instead of holding them in custody. And I'm sure the DA will probably have more information on that than I do. But yeah, you're right. The decision makers, the political part of it is. They're being real hard on our department right now about the juvenile stuff. They're threatening to close the halls and juvenile hall and things like that. But in the meantime, people are getting injured. It's not the first attack. There's many. So the mentality right now with these young men, they keep wanting, the politicians want to keep referring to them as children or youth, but they're 23, 24 years old now. So if an officer confronts a kid who maybe is acting out, well, they won't allow us. Back in the day, we could put them in their room for safety reasons. If you can sense the elevation of tension in the room. So if I have all of you behind closed doors and I have to deal with one guy, that's fine. And then everybody can, they're gonna look out their window and watch, but we can at least secure everybody so nobody gets hurt. Today, the decision makers don't want any of these kids locked up. They feel it's abusive, so they leave their doors open. So if I have a confrontation with a young man who's having a bad day, and we try to detain him or secure him, now the pack is now saying, if you touch our friend, we are going to attack the officer. And because we have such a shortage, and this is the fear. I realize every sheriff goes out every night and every day, and you don't know if you're going to get in 2 fights that day or no fights, but it's always going to be a possibility. They're face to face with somebody. That's a very dangerous job, and you're aware of it. But when you're in a custodial situation and you're working with supposedly youth and children, and now you're dealing with men, and they've had this arrangement that if I confront you, I have to deal with all of them because we can no longer secure them because somebody who's making a decision believes that's abuse to have them behind locked doors in a situation like that where there's tension. And again, we don't have the same youth in our juvenile halls that we once did. Not the kid that threw the rock through the window. We don't have the kid that stole, a few things at the grocery store, a pair of pants at, Burlington Coal Factory. We got people that are shooting people, killing people, stabbing people, hurting people, harming, and here's the frustrating part. Just speaking about the person that got hurt the other night, we don't even know if they'll file charges against that kid. And he's 17 years old. He'll be 18 in May, and he pretty much said, I'm going after everyone. So this wasn't his first attack. He attacked another officer about a month prior, but we don't even know if the DA will file. And the laceration is pretty deep. It's right here in his cheek, probably as long as my finger. But I've seen pictures of it and stuff. But we're having youth now that have the prison mentality, and no one's doing anything about it. It seems like, and it's very frustrating. It's hard to recruit people to work for us. more importantly, it's hard for us to keep them once they get hired. We spend volumes of money in training, and they leave within 5 months because it's abusive, it's aggressive, it's scary, and they took pepper spray away from us. That was crowd control. That was the situation. So we lost a lot of the tools that de-escalation. We're fantastic at it. We've been trained, and trained some more, and most of us are really good at it. But when you're in a physical situation, you don't have anything. So, like the officer said earlier, we think about what could we have done differently? How could we have handled it? How can we have maintained this? How much force do we use? So the problem we have with that is that every time there is a situation where it's initiated by the person that's in custody, the person in custody doesn't get questioned. The person that handled it is going to be gone through with a fine-tooth comb to see if they used appropriate response in their, and it's not easy. And these kids will lie, believe it or not. They will make up stuff because they know somebody's listening. So it's been a very frustrating time for the department, and now that they're pulling deputies out of our communities to work in there, it's even more difficult to supervise them as efficiently as we once did. I think we do a really good job, but it's just that much tougher. And then the ones that are remaining in the offices are concerned that they may get a call, that they may have to report, and then leave their cases behind. So it's just a very unfortunate domino effect. And trust me, I am not pleased to share any of this with you, but I think it's important that the community knows where we're at.
Question,
Yes, sir.
couple questions. So you have adults that are being housed with juveniles.
Correct.
What is the oldest age for an adult to be able to go to the probation with juvenile?
The oldest kid, I believe, that is in Silmar at Beverage J Juvenile Hall, I believe the last I heard was 27. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, he was the driver in a shooting of a sheriff deputy.
And he's being housed
With juveniles.
with juveniles.
Yeah. And they're having new programs to start, because again, the decision makers are trying to, it's these community-based organizations that says, we can do your job better and cheaper, and somebody's hearing that. And
Is there a max age they've come up with?
not to my knowledge, not to my knowledge.
And your deputies?
But that's the oldest one. I don't think there's more than one, but we have, I would say there's 20%, maybe larger, from what I understand, that are 22, 23 on average.
And are your deputies, they're carrying weapons in this situation or not?
No, we just got an email this morning that we're gonna get knife vests, I guess, the vest to protect you from being stabbed. That's the process, but we know how long that will take. And our concern is, our lives matter too.
So you're in these situations without a weapon to protect yourself?
No pepper spray, no weapon. We have handcuffs in your hands and your brain to try to de-escalate it, but they've already have their own plotting. Like, again, we don't have the kid that we once had for years where you're going home in 3 weeks. You did a bad thing, you're gonna go to court and we're gonna release you, you get to go home. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel as soon as they get arrested. We're getting kids now that are staying there for 2-3 years. So what do you do for 2 or 3 years? You create your own environment, and if you have people that are afraid, we have, I would say more than 50% of the deputies hired to work in custody for our department, they're 5'1". A lot of them are women, and these guys are hitting them. They're punching women in the face without any concern, no filings, no paper, very minimal paperwork. Kid had a bad day, somebody will come in. We have a probation. If you ever get a chance to watch the Probation Oversight Commission, just like your commission, and they make the recommendations to the Board of Supervisors. One of them's been in prison for 20 years. Her father was in prison for many years. Her son's in prison for life. She's on the commission because they think that we're mistreating these kids. But that's the requirement of of the Board of Supervisors having this, one of them was a judge. The other lady was in juvenile hall when she was young, but they went to USC, got their law degree. So they have this like, this attitude toward law enforcement, like we mentioned earlier, that you know, they're not getting enough recess. They're not, but we can't let them go outside because they fight. We can't let them go outside because they want to hurt each other or they want to hurt somebody, and we just don't have the staffing anymore. So we have to minimize our time outside. Back in the day when I was a young man and I worked in custody, we could take kids out till midnight in the gym and play basketball and run the game all night long, and they had a blast. You can't do that anymore. The violent thinking in their head is about opportunity to harm. It's not about being a kid, you know, and interacting with some adults, you know, that, you know, we represent through our careers, our big brother, then we become the uncle, then we become the father figure, then we become the wise old man, you know, the grandfather figure, and we're giving good advice to these kids. That no longer exists. The interaction is strictly correctional type work, where we're just housing people and things of that nature. And it's a dangerous situation now.
When you're looking for the protective vests that you've requested and some of the other equipment that you're getting, or have requested, what's your time frame you said, or do you even know?
We got the email today, so, you know, we don't know if it's gonna be 6 weeks or 6 years. You know, we just don't know. We hope it's yesterday, but again, you know, the guy that got his face cut up, and he's not a small guy, he's my size at least, you know, and he has 20 years experience, and he's trying to de-escalate a situation, and the kid had 2 shanks on him. And finding a shank in juvenile hall 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago was rare. They're everywhere now. I mean, we search 5 or 6 times a day, complete searches, and take everything out, and within a couple of days they get them back. So it's you know, we don't have many voices in the community just to help us get through this. Most of the voices are the decision makers, are this this probation oversight commission that's loaded up with people that just hate law enforcement. You know, they think these kids are kids, and they're not. They're young men that have committed crimes that are serious.
How many officers do you have up here?
Up here right now, between the courthouse and juvenile and us, we went from 20 officers, we're down to 10 in my office.
So for the Antelope Valley, yes, yeah.
You probably have another 20 at the courthouse, that's formal probation, and then you probably have another 15 at the juvenile office. You have 25-year-olds reported to the juvenile office now because they're on a juvenile crime, and they're being given probation for a longer period of time. It's a mess. It's a serious mess. So just think about it. If that kid goes to juvenile hall and he's going to harm an officer and there's no repercussions, there's no accountability, what's stopping him from harming one of us in the community? Because he knows someone's going to sit there and be supportive of him, including the Board of Supervisors, unfortunately, the majority of them. Ms. Barger has been very supportive. The rest, I can't say so much.
Are your officers licensed to carry?
Some are. Mr. Crisanti, he carries. So about 50% of my unit does carry, but they're armed on request, and then we had a special enforcement unit, SEO, special enforcement officers. They did the searches, the crimes, they did all the stuff in the community. If we had a probationer who was out of, they would go, and there are special teams. There's teams that they work sexual abuse cases, you know, all the kind of stuff. They have different sections. So I would say there's probably, 60 people in that unit altogether? We lost 23 to reassignment last week. So 23 of those carrying that worked with sheriffs, with clear units and stuff, and down in the LAPD area, they were pulled out and put back in juvenile hall to assist, took their weapon, took their bonus pay to carry a weapon, which was 5.5%, and told them that you have like 48 hours to report to the training center, you're going back to juvenile hall. And these guys have been doing this for 15, 16, 17 years in the department, and they're being sent back to the entry-level position because of the nonsense that's happening there, the violent nonsense. So we're being torn apart. And of course, you can figure out how morale is unbelievably low. Never seen it. pepper spray or some type of tool to have crowd control. We need to secure them in the rooms to create less tension, so when we have to deal with an irate inmate, if you will, or a juvenile that's my size and he wants to beat the world up and he's angry for whatever reason, that we can de-escalate him one-on-one, or get him some help or whatever needs. But when we have an audience, his audience, he's not gonna back down, he's gonna push forward because he knows the 6 people behind him, or 10 people behind him are gonna support him in the attack if he's to get, if the officer gets the upper hand on him. And again, we're not trying to fight with them, we're just trying to secure them. Our first attempt is to always safely secure them so nobody gets hurt. There's a very fine line when you have to begin to defend yourself as a deputy in those situations. And we're not trained as efficiently for this type of work as the sheriffs are. Their training is much more intense, I would imagine, in CHPs. So it's just, it's not what we signed up for. We're not going out to battle every day, but it seems like that's what we're facing now, and it's discouraging for the new people. It's discouraging for some people. We have 65-year-old men and women that are being reclassified and sent back into custody. I don't want my 60-year-old friend or somebody having to deal with a 23-year-old angry kid who wants to beat you up but doesn't care. He'll slap the crap out of his grandma. What's going to stop him slapping you? So, any other questions?
Well, I thank you
Sorry for the horror stories, but
Yeah,
unfortunately,
thank you for bringing your stories.
unfortunately, they're true, and it's a sad time at the moment.
Thank you for your information. It's very disheartening, but thank you.
It is. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for listening.
I agree completely that the public needs to know.
They do. The LA Times doesn't really tell the whole story. You probably know.
Thank you. Okay, Highway Patrol?
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for having me here today. In looking back at our quarterly statistics, unfortunately, the weather did have an impact on our ability to conduct proactive enforcement. But nonetheless, even with the weather that we've had the last 3 months, my officers still continue to go out and do the basics, which is enforce the laws so that we can protect lives and property. During the last 3 months, or the first quarter, I did compare that towards 2022. And we had 216 arrests, which is up almost 2% from last year's timeframe. We issued over 3,000, almost 3,100 citations, which was slightly down. But again, with the weather, we found that in March, most of our days were spent dealing with weather conditions and subsequent driving consequences of people driving 100 miles an hour or 60 miles an hour in the snow or the rain, than be able to do enforcement. Our DUI arrests were down slightly at 5% to 185 arrests for the 3-month period. But we also saw a significant drop in our DWI crashes. It dropped 30% with only 32. Again, we do see a lot of hit and run collisions, and unfortunately, the maximum sentence even for an injury or felony hit and run is 5 years, I believe, whereas DWI crashes are significantly higher, so a lot of people do flee crashes when they are probably intoxicated to avoid that prosecution. Overall enforcement contacts, we had almost 5,000 enforcement contacts, which was an increase of 6% over last year. In addition to focusing on the enforcement for the area, I have a lot of my staff also continuing on recruitment. As a department, we are down 1,000 positions statewide. And as a department with only 7,000 uniformed personnel throughout the state, that's a significant impact to our staffing. So we are looking to try and maximize recruitment capabilities and possibilities, even given the climate today towards law enforcement. And some of that is through our Explorer Post program, which COVID decimated to only 1 member. I'm trying to rebuild that to a more significant volunteer post to prepare high schoolers essentially for careers in law enforcement. Because of the age of 21 being a minimum age, it works well with someone who's in high school and wants to get an associate's degree in college and then progress into law enforcement. Because the time frame works well, and that program works with that kind of timing. And then we also continue our community involvement. My PIO and several of my staff members are involved in almost all the events that occur here in the Antelope Valley, not just the Poppy Festival or the fair, but also a lot of the high school events and other things that we're out there to make sure that we're a partner in the community to work forward. But the challenges of today are being realized, and we are seeing individuals become more violent with my officers. I've had several uses of force recently. In fact, one of my officers was blatantly attacked at Wrightwood after having a laser pointed at him. As he apprehended the individual literally attacked him, punching him in the face, and had to have the assistance of other individuals in the parking lot to assist him, as backup was probably 30 minutes away. These are the challenges that we face, but we're continuing to march forward, even with presented with those.
Thank you.
A 21-year-old who has their stuff together can become law enforcement, but a 27-year-old will be in juvenile hall. Okay, thank you very much, sir. District Attorney update.
Good morning. Okay, these are the felony filing stats for the month of March for the city of Lancaster. Arson, we filed 1 arson case. The yearly average is only 1 every 2 months. Auto burgs, we filed 10. The yearly average is 12. For residential and commercial burglaries, in March we filed 16. The yearly average is 9. Criminal threats, we filed 7 criminal threat cases for the month of March. The yearly average is 4. Drug sales, 5 cases filed in March. The yearly average is 3. Domestic violence cases, we filed 10. Felonies, the yearly average is 9. Evading, hit and run, we filed 2 for the month of March. The yearly average is 2. Felony assaults, I guess those would be same as aggravated assaults for the Sheriff's Department stats. We filed 14. The yearly average is 12. Did not file any felony DUI, so that's a good thing. Grand theft, I'll say the yearly average is only 1. We filed 0, so still good. Grand theft, ID theft, we filed 8 for the month of March. The yearly average is 5. Illegal firearm cases, we filed 13. The yearly average is 16. Did not file any murder or attempted murders. The yearly average is 2. Robberies, we filed 5. Yearly average is 6. Sex crimes, both adult and child sex crimes, we filed 3. The yearly average is 6. Vandalisms, we filed 5. Yearly average is 3. Those are felony vandalism. And I was asked to provide stats for the violations of protective order. Those are generally misdemeanors. For the month of March, we filed 24. Those are the stats for the month of March.
Great. Thank you very much. Real quick, want to thank you again for the presentation last month. That was very informative, and I appreciate all the time that she took with us. Also, just to reiterate, we talk a lot about concerns with some of the policies made at higher levels, but appreciate the work that you and the men and women in your office are doing in our community.
You're welcome.
Question on the yearly average, is that over the past year, or how many years do you go back to find that average?
So it's kind of a rolling average. So when I'm giving you the number of cases we filed in March, I'm talking about the yearly average would be the average number of cases filed from March of 2022 through March of 2023, or February of 2022 through February of 2023.
Any questions from other commissioners?
Just real quick on the firearm, were any of those like a repeat that they were already felons and got caught again?
Yeah, so most of the felon with a firearm cases, most of the illegal firearm cases are felon with a firearm. So those are just generally when we file a felony firearm case. Sometimes they'll have an unregistered firearm. A lot of times those will get filed as misdemeanors. Sometimes those would be represented here. These are only felony firearm cases. So most of those are felon with firearms. I can separate them out if you want, but
just curious. Yeah, thank you.
if you want.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving ahead, we have no city attorney or public safety update, so we'll move to the legislative offices. We'll start with Congressman Garcia's office.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and Board. Greetings from Congressman Garcia. Just a couple of things that are relevant to this commission that I think is worthy of mentioning. The congressman recently introduced two bills regarding school safety. He's reintroduced this, but it didn't go anywhere, so he's coming back around. Unfortunately, every time there's a shooting, then it becomes an issue. Everyone wants to talk about it. But his bill, rather than just screaming about it and being upset about it, his bill really is a common sense bill in that it would take unused COVID funds to supply and provide schools with some infrastructure that's needed, barriers, panic buttons, room security type of systems, but also train and hire school resource officers. And that the ratio would be 500 officers, or 1 officers for every 500 students. That would be the ratio. Right now, the data shows that about 40% of the schools only have 1 resource officer, and that's 1 time a day, or 1 time a week, 1 day a week. So that, again, those would be funds that we have on hand, with the COVID funds that have not been used. The second bill he introduced was the Defending the Defenders Act, and this is in honor of Sergeant Steve Owen, who, as we all know, was killed in the line of duty. As we heard today, the heartbreaking stories of some of these heinous crimes not being charged or being minimized. This bill would address the murder of a law enforcement officer on the federal level. So if this gets passed, this would be a crime that would be charged on the federal level. What's very encouraging is he's got bicameral support with Senator Tom Scott Cotton on this bill. So he's working both sides of the aisle to try to get this passed. And then on March 9th, he sits on the Intelligence Committee, and on March 9th, he was able to address some of the intelligence leaders on the ongoing issue of fentanyl. This is something he's been very vocal about, very concerned about. A lot of this is coming through our southern border, and on average, we're losing about 100,000 lives a year. And so it's really, it's sort of an attack, if you will. It's attack on our nation, attack on our young people, but I think the high risk, and forgive me if I've got the numbers wrong, but 18 to 45 seems the targeted age for those we're losing on the fentanyl front. But also any other lethal narcotics coming through the southern border. It's a bit of a sieve, and there doesn't seem to be too much attention from our White House to address that. But he's continuing to do everything he can to be a vocal advocate to shut up the border and prevent this from coming through. So again, he's doing a lot of other things, but those are things that are pertinent to this committee. I'll stand ready for any questions.
So the fentanyl issue is one close to my heart because, of course, we see these kids when they come into the emergency department overdosed. But I think there's a misunderstanding that this is a opiate problem when, in fact, it's a border problem. The number of people in the United States dying from prescription opiates is tiny. This is all about drugs coming across the border and being substituted. And I think one of the side effects or one of the consequences of the war on opiates has been an increase in the use of illegal fentanyl. So I think by pretending that we have a war on opiates, what we're really doing is increasing the street use of fentanyl. And the problem with fentanyl is never prescribed for outpatient care. It's almost always almost always used perioperatively in the operating room. So what's happening is that it's a quality control issue. So these kids take a pill of fentanyl that may have 20 milligrams of fentanyl in the pill, and then they take a second pill, and it has 80 milligrams, and it kills them.
Yeah.
So this is it's an outrageous to me that we don't focus not on the war on opiates, which is silly, but the border. This is where this stuff's coming from. It's not made in the United States, it's made in Mexico and China, and it's pouring across the border and killing our kids. And the war on opiates, in fact, has a counter consequence. I mean, I think people, for example, I've noticed now that a lot of pharmacies have prescription oxycodone and other medications that are used in chronic pain patients that are now, they don't have a supply anymore. The DEA has successfully cracked down on the supply of quality control drugs, and therefore driven people who have historically been in pain management out of pain management and onto the streets. I think the DEA is responsible for killing more young people in this country. So I'm glad that he's paying attention to this and taking some action. So thank you.
You are welcome. Any questions? All right, thank you all.
I do. Actually, wanted to bring a couple of bills to your attention that I found about. You heard we were talking earlier about the problems related to retail theft, and I just learned this week of some bills that are being co-sponsored by the International Conferences Shopping Centers. It's the Combating Organized Retail Theft Act of 2023, I think is the name of it, and it's there's a bill in the Senate and a bill in the House, S-140 and H.R. 895.
HR 895?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I don't have an update, but I will follow that and get back to you.
Great, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Senator Wilkes' office.
Good morning, almost afternoon, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman. Senator Wilkes' legislation started hitting committees just last month. 3 of them have been passed. All 3 of them have been taken up, and all 3 have been passed. The one that's relevant to this committee would be Senate Bill 868, which would build on previous efforts to make trauma kits more widely available and would require K through 12 classrooms to have a trauma kit available in the event of an emergency. This bill passed the Senate Education Committee on the 29th of last month and will be heard in Appropriations Committee. This is very important because we know in the case of emergencies, whether, God forbid, especially an active shooter situation, that a lot of times when first responders arrive to the scene, their first responsibility is to take down the threat. So in these situations, people in the classrooms and staff at schools end up being the ones who administer first aid, and so having these kits available will save lives. So I personally am very proud of that. And so some hot topics that are out there is Senate Bill 44. Senator Wilk is a co-author of this bill. It's dubbed Alexandra's Law. And it will require that a written advisory or admonishment be issued to a person convicted of a fentanyl-related drug offense, notifying the person of the danger of manufacturing and distributing controlled substances and of the potential future of criminal liability if another person dies as a result of that person's actions. This bill failed, but it was granted reconsideration, so it is eligible to be taken up at a later hearing. Another hot topic would be Senate Bill 62. It adds fentanyl to the controlled substance, currently heroin, cocaine-based substances like that. It would add fentanyl to that list, and it is also, which would make it eligible for an additional prison term. And so this bill failed as well, but it was also granted reconsideration. So the senator will continues to be a proponent for enforcing the law and adding more laws to the books that makes this community and the state safe from fentanyl-related issues. And again, Senator Wilk is in the minority, but he continues to be a champion on this issue. Senate Bill 2 removes the may issue and good character and good cause requirements to obtain a license to carry a concealed firearm, a CCW. It prohibits CCW holders from carrying firearms in a long list of places, including places where alcohol is served and any business establishment that does not post a sign that firearms are permitted there. Requires additional background investigations before being granted a CCW. It expands the list of misdemeanor crimes, the conviction of of which results in a prohibition to own or possess a firearm. This includes misdemeanor convictions for carrying a concealed firearm, carrying a loaded firearm, or carrying an unloaded firearm in a public place or a public street. It expands requirements for obtaining concealed weapons permits, including additional fingerprinting requirements, increasing fees for obtaining firearm ammunition, precursor parts, and anything else pretty much associated with getting a concealed weapon. This bill passed committee with Senator Wilk opposing. Senate Bill 31.
Some clarity on that bill.
Yes.
So that passed, that was a result of the Supreme Court decision that basically stated that, you have to be you have to take the subjective out of the application. So the majority, or you're saying the majority party is basically increasing fees and limits and all this to price people out of exercising that right?
Yes. There is legislation that is coming out of Sacramento by the majority party, basically that puts restraints on what you are able to do and what you are required to do to attain a weapon legally. Senator Will continues to be a proponent of being able to attain a weapon legally and punishing those who obtain weapons illegally. Senate Bill 31 is just also a bill that Senator Wilk is a co-author of. This provides that that it is a public nuisance subject to abetment for any person to sit, lie, sleep, store, use, maintain, or place personal property upon any street, sidewalk, or any other public right-of-way within 1,000 feet of a school, a daycare center, a park, or a library, or they call those sensitive areas. This bill requires a 72-hour notice to vacate. A violation may be abated as a public nuisance or charged as a wobblet, an infraction, or a misdemeanor. This bill failed and was granted reconsideration. Senate Bill 316, this restores pre-Proposition 47 penalties, which permits a person who commits petty theft or new crime of shoplifting or a misdemeanor to be subject to an alternative felony misdemeanor penalty if the person has 3 or more prior convictions for theft-related crimes, including vehicle theft, shoplifting, elder or financial abuse, robbery, and felony receiving stolen property, increased penalties for serial thieves. Again, legislation that is aimed at bringing the financial crimes down and theft down, and to prosecute those and to have laws on the books that protect our community against these sort of crimes, failed in the Capitol. Senator Will continues to be a proponent of enforcing the law and passing laws that protect people. I am here for any questions. This is the update that I was given. So my answer will probably be I will come get back to you. But again, we are available. I appreciate some of the commissioners that have interacted with our office and have given some great ideas. The senator has received those ideas. When he is in the district, we are looking to make some time to make himself available to some of you. And I know there's a Brown Act violation, so if it's not in this setting, we will work that out. But again, Senator Will cares the cries of this community. He cares, and he has been a champion and a fighter up in Sacramento. It's been hard, but I'm proud to work for him. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, just to follow up, a while back,
Yes.
we had asked about Senator Wilk's office inviting CDCR to participate in these meetings.
Yes. So that was a conversation that started under our previous legislative director and our previous legislative staff. We have a new legislative director and a new legislative staff. So we are waiting for, while they're getting all of the capital stuff together, to understand if we can have an update for you on that. But because of the staff changes and the office changes and the different turnarounds, new committees and positions and things like that, I do not have an update on you for that yet, but it has been in my weekly reports.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have Assemblymember Lackey's office.
Thank you so much. Before I start the report, I wanted to comment about the probation issues. And if there's anything the Assemblyman can do, a letter to the Board of Supervisors or anything for public safety, let me know. I took copious notes, but I'm sure information from you would be a little bit better. But he definitely, that is, whew, I was fuming in my chair for him over there. Just crazy. The Assemblyman would like me to talk to you about supporting some of the bills that he has in committee right now, and Ms. Stenbeck was kind enough to send those out to you. I have one additional one as well. But the first one that he's already getting kickback on, which is mind-blowing, is AB 1544, which is for the Children Abuse Central Index, CACI. And this system was created in 1965 with index cards. And the way that it works now, you wonder if maybe they're still using them. But the Assemblyman is trying to help the connection between law enforcement and the DOJ to get information into CACI, because he found out with the investigation that there are 27,000 reports that were missing because of the antiquated system, which is not index cards, but it is still antiquated. And so they are working to try to get that improved. This bill would authorize local law enforcement to forward reports of substantiated child abuse to the DOJ for listing within CACI, and it would also require the DOJ to develop grievance process for the reports generated from the law enforcement entities. So that's the first one that he would appreciate support on from the City of Lancaster, from this commission as well. The second one is for AB 1368, which is the backlog of sexual assault forensic evidence kits. And they had Bill SB 22 that mandated that all sexual assault forensic kits collected after 2016 are tested for DNA evidence. That's good. So yes, that helps, but now we have the ones from 2016 forward that are still sitting around. Not all of them, but many. And this bill would require law enforcement agencies to submit any of those forensic evidence kits collected before January 1st, 2016 to the crime lab on or before January 1st, 2025. I don't know if any of you remember your biology classes, but evidence does start to deteriorate after a certain amount of time, and we're talking a 10-year lag for a heinous crime against people that, don't have a voice.
Does that, when it's that long, doesn't it extend past the statute of limitations? And I don't, that might be a question how that would work when the district attorney's doing an investigation, but I mean, if they've got that much of a backlog.
I'm telling you.
I mean,
on the charge, so murder, obviously, no. There's certain rates, cases that the statute would be longer. I'm not sure when, there's just a question of when it would actually start to fall the statute of limitations. So we obviously don't have a suspect or a harm.
does this, has this been a challenge for your office when prosecuting?
I'm not aware of a situation where, because normally you're looking, when you're going to do DNA, it's going to be on a serious crime. It's going to have a relatively long statute of limitation. And the cold cases are generally murders, so they have no statute of limitation. So you can get a DNA hit on a 25-year-old, and you've seen that, I'm sure, in the news plenty. So there's no statute on murder.
Thank you.
The next bill that he would appreciate support on is AB 56, which is victim compensation for pain and suffering. The Assemblyman has had a difficulty being on, I mean, he's thankful to be on the Public Safety Committee, but also a difficulty hearing how criminals are being protected over victims. And this bill would expand compensation paid for non-economic damages such as pain and suffering, victims incurred from crimes including mayhem, torture, kidnapping, sexual assault, rape, child sexual abuse, stalking, murder, and attempted murder. So he's looking to extend their compensation. And the last one, which you don't have information on, but I will send that also, is AB 1616, which is illicit cannabis enforcement grants. And the state, since Prop 64 was established in 2016, has struggled to build up the licensed cannabis market while holding back the illicit market. And this bill would specifically amend the Board of State Community Corrections Public Health and Safety Grant Program by expanding the eligibility criteria to allow all local governments to apply for grant funding. The bill further directs the board to prioritize the allocation of grants to programs addressing unlawful retail and cultivation activities. And as we know, that would be very important for our area. So those are the 4 bills that he is looking for support on. He has many more, but these particularly are directed to your group. Any questions?
Okay. Well, I understand because we don't have them agendized for a vote, what we're able to do is circulate a letter with a space for each commissioner to sign if they choose to sign on support. Is that I want to make sure I'm accurate with that.
Yeah, you can send out individually,
Mhm.
and identify your commissioner from the Justice Commission, or write me at that one going, that's just one for the entire commission that you guys can each sign.
Yeah, let's do that. Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank
your
you.
support.
I didn't see anyone, but do we have a representative from Assemblymember Carrillo's office? Okay. Then we will go to public business from the floor, non-agendized items.
This is the time to address the commission on non-agendized matters. Speaker cards can be found on the back table of the council chambers. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each unless a different time limit is announced. State law prohibits the commission from taking action on items not on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 cards. First up, Mr. David Paul.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, good morning, afternoon. Yeah, I'm totally depressed. I come in here with ideas and I realize how futile they are, but I do want to talk about improving the impression in the community of law enforcement. And even with our sheriff's settlement agreement, I've watched through these years all the efforts that have been made and the positive results that have come up, and that's just not being published enough. And Dr. Brown, I totally agree with you, the DEA and cutting down the legal drugs force. And I talked before about an organization I belong to, LEAP. It's Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. And these are all former police officers, judges, prosecutors that say, look, the war on drugs isn't working. And that's kind of what I would like this voice of this unique body to come forward to the community about in general. You know, there's a lot of animosity and hatred, and I'm working on the Juneteenth celebration we're putting together for the city, the second one. And basically, last year they had shirts, and on the shirts in the bottom it said free-ish since 1865. And so that just shows that there's a lot of work to do. And if you look into some of these things, there are grievances where we've failed the African American community all through the years. So there are legitimate grievances. And I just want us to recognize that as a starting point, not all of that, because there's a lot of bad things. So it's never about so what, everybody has problems. It's what now. And what I want to do now is bring people together to realize that we are all in this together and we have to get through this. And for probation, I wanted to tell you a story that might hearten you. And it's just an example of how really stupid I am and naive. But in 1979, I crushed my foot. And it took me out of my martial arts career. I still worked in nightclubs, bouncing heads, but I went to work in the prison, Stateville Penitentiary, a maximum security prison in Joliet, and could barely walk, and it's an awakening, and things have changed. And at that point, the prison gangs were different. They understood respect. But now, all that's gone, and that's 40 years ago. So it's gotten even worse, but I think that people still understand power and force, and that's all they understand. And just as this funny story, I was working in the chow hall, and I was given the keys to let a guy out to dump the trash. So we go around the corner, and he's dumping the trash, and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do in this situation, but I went out there, and the guy is looking at me, and he says, "Let me wear your watch." And I said, "What?" He said, "Let me wear your watch." And I took out my chain. I used to, I relate to the Star of David as an involution and evolution of life symbol, a universal symbol, not anything particularly with Judaism. And I pulled that out. It says, "You want to wear my chain too?" And when he saw that star, he jumped back. He said, "Oh, I know what you are. You're one of those black gangster disciple enforcers." And okay, well, that'll work. So I didn't have any problem with that anymore. But I realized that the only power I had was in my direct contact with these inmates. So I have a friend, he was an LTA, leisure time activities. He teaches the inmates sports and football and all these things. And he took my gym equipment into the gym where he worked with them. And I put that stuff on, and I went into the gym several times, and I boxed with the inmates. And that was just, they couldn't believe that a white officer would come in and box with the black inmates. But I did, and then I went to academy, and when I was away in the academy, they did a sweep and took all my equipment out of the locker, so that was the end of that. But that was a lot of fun to be able to go in and just actually get their attention and have them realize that they have to follow the rules, and that's gone in this world. So I appreciate your time. Thank you. I mean,
Great. Thank you
if
very
I can
much.
come back and get on the agenda for
Yeah.
4 or 5 minutes, I will show you what I really wanted to say today about the plan to get
Okay.
this commission to do stuff. So
Okay, thank you very much
Thank you
for,
so
for
much.
coming and participating today.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Okay, next we have Anita Boardlame.
Here I am again. I refuse to give up. So the last time I was here, I was told by the sheriff, and I know you're all laughing at the American people because what she said, you have no legal obligation to anybody. This man acts like no one's ever been prosecuted illegally or denied trials. These are documents. You wouldn't want to do something about the Mexican cartel? Then here's documents in here about a Valterra Products who stole $150,000 in a federal retirement, bribed a judge, and for all I know, you're all bribed. I also have state's evidence in here that I was denied medical treatment when I was taken to AV Hospital. You can laugh all you want, but let me tell you something. This is domestic terrorism. Maybe most of the sheriffs are good. They have a hard job. But when you get a detective telling you that I deserve retaliation and that my daughter deserves to be beat, raped, and tortured by a retired judge's family member, this guy right here, all before my daughter was criminally charged. The man likes to do lewd acts with children and use the house in Palmdale. Then you get denial of restraining orders against people. And oh my God, a judge tells me, hey, Anita, I'm stealing all the evidence. I know that we don't have a case against you. Then he tells me, guess what? They told you to go to Rex Paris and ask for an investigation. Then there's Jackie Lacey, who threw a case in 2014 for a little black African-American little girl who watched her daughter, who watched her mother be assaulted by an FBI agent's relative. You're talking about serious injustice here. And if everybody thinks that I'm going to let the Mexican cartel and a group of mob cops that are probably no longer working for the system continue to tell me, and I just went back to the police station. You know what your night watchman had the nerve to tell me? That Melissa Dorsey is not a sheriff. All these reports filed before my case. The most important one is how sick I am that I voted for Rex Paris. Before my neighbors attacked me, and they said they were going to, I wrote a letter. By the way, she broke into my house again, stole diabetic medication, and I can't get the sheriffs to take a report. This man is falsifying working for, as a case manager, stole $37,500, and here I am out of time again. But you know what? I'm gonna continue, and I might even sue some of you for stealing my business as private citizens. Just like if you're in a car accident and you hit me, sir, I have the right to sue you because I know you're all obstructing serious justice. I'll be back at the sheriff's station giving them this. Maybe they can deny the children.
Your 3 minutes. Commissioner comments?
Laugh.
None? Okay, great. That's it. I have none as well. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate everybody for being here. Great meeting. And we stand adjourned. Our next regular meeting will be Wednesday, May 10th at 10 a.m.